everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fantasy Gods. I'm Bryce Chaves.
And I'm Toby White.
So, Toby, this NFL season's been full of injuries and full of surprises. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us can say that this season is nothing like we've ever seen before. And in terms of fantasy perspectives, there has been a lot of players that have surprised so many people through the majority of this season right now and have replaced a lot of guys. I mean, what's your take on this?
Well, actually, right, Brett. Some players haven't even gone over to 10 points, and I think it's like surprising that the injury rate is incredible right now, and especially with the COVID too, is like players have been going in and out all week, and I think it's pretty surprising for the guys who have stepped up for those players who have been missing for X amount of weeks. And it's been pretty awesome for those people who picked them up over waivers and everything like that.
Agreed. And let's jump right into this. The first guy that has certainly stepped into a larger role and has made an impact on everyone's team who has him is Mike Davis from the Carolina Panthers, the running back right now who has replaced pretty much the number one pick in everyone's fantasy draft, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this guy has come in and just dominated. We can clearly see that Matt Rule has made this offense run heavy, and he has made Mike Davis the star that surrounds this offense. Just looking at fantasy perspectives, he's averaging 16, 17 points per game in most leagues. And he's just been being very consistent, almost very similar to Christian McCaffrey. And I don't think anyone saw this coming, especially out of a running back that is following Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, especially as soon as McCaffrey went down, everybody started freaking out. But Mike Davis, he was the Bears running back actually last year. He was like the third string back, and now he had to start him over the past few weeks, and he's playing incredible. And for me personally, it's sad that I haven't had Christian McCaffrey on the field since week 3. So I really need him back. But Mike Davis is doing a good job carrying the load.
Agreed. Now, one of the guys that stepped in as well through the tough time of injuries has been Andy Dalton, the former Bengal, now Dallas Cowboy, stepping in to replace Dak Prescott, who had a very unfortunate injury against the New York Giants, broken and dislocation in his ankle. So Andy Dalton has stepped in, and despite of what he's done recently with the Cowboys, having to understand a playbook, he's been pretty decent in fantasy. I don't think we've seen full potential out of Andy Dalton as far as, his fantasy value, but I think in the long term with the weapons that he has, he could be a very, very well stashed bench quarterback or even potentially a starter in some leagues.
Well, you're right, Brett, because especially now since the Cowboys are 2-4 and they need any help, and Andy Dalton has to be that leader for them. And especially he's still on waivers and he's still on the waiver wire in most leagues. So pick him up if you need a quarterback in a short term, or even long term. But let's see if he can turn around in this Cowboys offense.
All right, so our next guy on our list is not so much a replacement, but has been doing very well, surprisingly, given the depth chart that the Green Bay Packers originally listed, is Robert Tonyan. A lot of people didn't have Robert Tonyan on their fantasy cheat sheets and didn't even know who he was. And now all of a sudden, Tonyan has come onto the scene with Aaron Rodgers, and he's been putting up consistent touchdowns in the red zone and has been really what we've seen now is a consistent starting tight end in most fantasy leagues. He's putting up numbers almost comparable to guys such as Mike Gesicki and Austin Hooper. I mean, I don't know about you, but I definitely think that Tonyan could be very valuable, especially in some playoff runs.
Yeah, definitely, because Robert Tonyan is also Aaron Rodgers' new favorite target. So he has been the go-to guy on every play for Rodgers instead of the other tight ends that the Packers have. And after going off against that game against the Falcons, had 3 touchdowns, I think. And he went off, and everybody just started picking him up after that game.
Agreed. And so our final player on our list is also someone who didn't even, come onto the scene until the first few weeks into the season is Travis Fulgham from the Philadelphia Eagles, the wide receiver who has stepped in to replace what is seemingly almost an entire wide receiver core injured, from Alshon Jeffrey to Deshaun Jackson. And now they're just left with Fulgham and the likes of Greg Ward as well. I mean, this Eagles wide receiver corps has been hurting the past few years, and I think Fulgham, as far as fantasy wise, has stepped up, put up consistent targets in the red zone. He's put up very large chunks of yardage, and he's been putting up almost 20, 21 points per game. I mean, I believe the last check I checked ESPN Fantasy, he's averaging almost 22 points per game, which is almost unheard of for a wide receiver.
Yeah, definitely. And especially a guy that was on that got cut by like 4 practice squads, and now he's a starter because the Eagles are decimated in injury. And he actually averaged, so I had him started last week, and he had 10.5 points in my fantasy league. And I was like, okay, and who is this guy again? Like, he just burst onto the scene, and nobody knows about him, but now we do. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Fantasy Gods. I'm Toby White.
And I'm Brett Chaves.
Have a great rest of your night. Keep calm and play fantasy football.